My wife, Rachel, and I are both from the Ozarks, but she's from Ava and I'm not. And we came here after college with the intention of maybe moving somewhere that aligned more with our values. So the Ozarks at the time, recreation for us was hiking and rock climbing, and those things tended to be not in our backyard, but somewhere else. And then as our desires for other things, such as really good food and clean environment, access to land, all those things, as they became important in our lives, we realized that, our backyard was really where we belonged anyway, and we didn't need to go anywhere for those things. So we stayed put. It was an intentional thing to say, you know what, if you keep moving, it's hard to grow roots. So we wanted to grow roots here and cultivate community and relationships and things that were beyond just the career path of where that took us, and more about, the things that truly touched us in a way that had nothing to do with finances or. So we stayed put. We found a little farm. We both love the outdoors, and it seemed to make sense to have our own space to be creative. Rachel being a dietitian and me enjoying working, it seemed like a farm made the most sense. So that was around 2007, we moved to Ava. Now it's 2024, so it's been a little while. And then we were here farming for about 10 years, and then we had children. And our oldest is 8 and our youngest is 4. And so that added another layer to the things that were important to us.
So you had some good chances to put some roots in, for sure.
Yeah, to really not just have a piece of land that you've cultivated, but little hearts and minds that you can cultivate that, it seemed to make sense at that point in our lives to start that part of the family. Not that it wasn't important to us early on, but we definitely were more cautious with having kids right away. We thought maybe there was other ideas within our life that we hadn't totally sorted out to have kids yet. So yeah, that brings us up to now Simon is 8. And then a year ago, last November, the kids and I, stay-at-home dad / farmer / homeschool, person, and Rachel and I share all those responsibilities, but they were with me a lot. Because we also own a small health food store in Ava, which is a whole nother conversation. But, she is the one that really takes such good care of that. And that takes a lot of her time. And so the kids get to do all the things with Dad. Mm-hmm. And so we were helping some neighbors and some friends that... It was a big part of what is important to me to teach the children is about going and helping others, similar to what you were doing here with us today of coming and trying to spend time to cultivate those relationships, just like you would spend time in a garden. A garden isn't fruitful if you don't put in effort. Mm-hmm. So we were putting in some time with some loved ones, friends, and heading back home from that in the evening. We were going through an intersection that one way that is going north and south has a stop, and the way going east and west, which we were on, does not. And unbeknownst to us, somebody clipped the back of the truck, and she was over the legal limit of alcohol, and so her maybe cognition was impaired, maybe she wasn't paying attention. But it was something that, we were hit by a drunk driver. So we rolled the pickup, and when it came to a stop, there were injuries. The injuries to the children were 0. The miracles that had already started to unfold at that point, are beyond understanding. And then for myself, I had an injury of C5 through 7, which is on my spine, and it resulted in some paralysis, and that's been about a year now. Life flighted to Springfield, spent a month in Springfield, and then 5 months at Craig Hospital in Colorado, and then made the journey home. And the journey home is still a journey every day, just like everybody else. Now with just some different, you can be presented things and see it as an obstacle or see it as an opportunity. Life as now a stay-at-home dad and farmer have their own opportunities for growth. You know, at the C5 level, obviously I'm in a power chair. I have limited hand movement. I can luckily move both of my arms well enough to give my loved ones hugs, which is something that I was really praying for in the ICU. As far as her and what that entails, you know, she didn't have any intentions to hurt anybody, but there were choices made that maybe made it harder to not hurt somebody. Even at the very beginning, Rachel and I did not have anger towards an accident. You know, leading into how to not be angry when things come at us as an opportunity or an obstacle. And so the opportunity there to not have anger or to not have blame on our hearts or on our minds has not been something that she and I have struggled with. It's not that we don't have hard days, but the feeling of anger was never something that we've struggled with. And I think it was because we both know that, for myself, and I shouldn't speak for Rachel because she has a different perspective, but I mean, I know her well enough to know some of what she's thinking. But for me, it was like, you know, somebody making a mistake. I also have made lots of mistakes, and we all continue to have unintended consequences of decisions that we make. You know, and it's something that I have always carried with me through my, you know, through faith or through things that have been shown to prove righteous in ways that there's no way to deny that forgiveness isn't healthy for everyone. She made a mistake. Sometimes our mistakes have consequences to other people who we really don't even know and understand. You know, I've never really even met her. We've seen her on a teleprompt in a courtroom. I haven't had the opportunity yet to give her a hug or to build a relationship, to tell her that, you know, I'm not, I'm not angry, and that, you know, it is something that I think we will pursue in the future. You know, it's something that I definitely would like to do, but she is still in the legal system in ways that, it's not easy to access.
That's amazing that you're actually wanting that, to pursue that, just pursue a hug even, and to let her know that.
Right, well, I mean, just like when we hurt someone, if I hurt someone, obviously I would want to reach out, but even more so than reaching out, if that person reached out to me and said, hey, this happened, and I forgive you, or I don't blame you. And talking about it today is something that revisits those like desires that, I've had for a while. Like I've thought, man, it would be so amazing if she was willing to have a relationship to where we could teach other people about these consequences and what that looks like on a real level. You know, if she would sit down like this and tell young people who are making critical decisions, like, hey, this is what, this is what happens when we don't always, and people hurt each other even if they're not drinking, but it does present that opportunity to help with that.
Yeah. something just maybe I could share as from my standpoint. I was able to visit you one time when you were in the ICU. At that point, there was a lot of kind of some anger, like, because it was all new.
Sure.
Not from you, but there's other people. And so the next time when you were out of ICU and the next time I was coming to visit you on the way in, I just felt prompted by God to ask you about how you felt about forgiveness, which for me at the time, it wasn't something easy to say, because I felt like, man, that is such a hard question when I'm not the one in your shoes. You know, like, how do you present that to someone? But I was like, well, as a friend, you know, I knew you enough to know that you're not easily offended or,
Sure.
you know, those kinds of things. So I just felt, you know, I think Jeff would appreciate that. So when I asked you there in the hospital, I don't know if you remember that, but asked you about forgiveness, and you didn't even bat an eye. You were like, oh yeah, we did that already. We've dealt with that already. We forgave her. And I was just so surprised and relieved and thankful, just a flood of emotions, even for me, you know, and the fact that you would recognize that so early on is something important to do.
Yeah.
You know, and then to hear you now, it's like permeating out of you that, you know, it's important to your growth, but also it's important to this lady's growth, to the offender's growth, whoever that might be. In any case, you know, it's like if we're not walking in that forgiveness, it's almost not allowing the other person to grow in the right way too, in a sense, you know. So
Yeah, you're holding them back.
yeah,
You know,
Yeah.
even if you don't get the chance to ever talk to them about it, you know. Yeah, early on, it was just, it wasn't even really a question. And not that the question wasn't valid, because a lot of people would be very angry. Or a lot of people are very angry when things happen to them, that it is at because their cost from somebody else's choices. You know, it makes us frustrated. To be mad at somebody for a mistake, it's not something that I want to hold on my heart. And I don't want them to hold it on their heart either. Because yeah, I agree with you. There were some people, some family members and friends that were mad, and probably still are mad about, you know, well, you don't deserve this or deserve that. Like, it becomes about, you know, you, like something happening to you that you don't deserve. And I'm also not of the belief of like, it's because of something I did or didn't do, like that. Because that also creates a lot of that anger and frustration and not forgiving yourself. Like, oh, it's because I'm a bad guy. That's something like that's not forgiveness on your own heart. Like, to get what I'm saying? Like, that's what I'm trying to relieve other people of. Yeah, no, it was more about like, let's get through these other struggles. It had nothing to do with forgiving her. Like, that wasn't, it wasn't a question. Where does that come from? I mean, I would hope that it comes from my relationship with God and my relationship with myself and with my other loved ones on, you know, on that kind of balance. Anytime we're faced with adversity, the logical end of our brains wants to figure out why.
Yeah.
You know, why did this happen? Or that way, usually because you want to avoid that situation later, right?
Right.
Like when something hard happens, it's like, okay, let's figure out why. That way we can prevent those things from happening again, or fix the course of action to prevent, you know, those problems.
Something you were touching on is wanting to figure things out, and sometimes that, I think what you're saying is that becomes almost a trap in a sense of trying to figure out so we don't recreate that moment or avoid it next time.
Sure, or even knowing why me, you know, the whole, but you know, why did this happen to me, or you know, like the victim mentality kind of scenario. Yeah. And wanting to figure it out in ways that it's like, you know, versus just things happen. And we can learn from it and grow, or we can, you know, or we can fight that current and try to rationalize our way into to other reasonings. You know, people have asked, you know, well, are you mad at God? You know, I get asked that question pretty often, you know, being mad at God. And that would be another blame situation. And that would get back to that whole I mean, it's interesting to use the word forgiveness, but that would be like me blaming God and not forgiving, like, the fact of just like sometimes, number one, we don't know why, and that is also okay to not always have the answers, and sometimes not having the answers is the biggest opportunity to explore growth versus trying to get back to whatever previous state of homeostasis we thought we had. You know, like, oh, well, won't you be happy if you just walk again? It's like, well, I'm going to try to be happy whether I walk or not.
You have the power to focus on whatever you want, really, and what you focus on is kind of the heart that you cultivate and the mindset you cultivate and the life that you get too, right?
What popped into my mind when you were bringing that up is, have you ever heard the old saying of like, you have two wolves inside of you and which one are you feeding?
Oh, right.
You know, you can feed the one that's full of those kinds of emotions, or you can feed the other one, and you have the ability to choose which one you're feeding. And so that, which empowers those emotions. So like you were saying, you felt those emotions, and maybe the emotion is valid in a sense of like, okay, it's okay to feel charged up, but what, you know, then what is the action that follows that, you know? So it's like, okay, yeah, this is a hard situation, or this is an emotional time, but choosing the opportunity to move in a direction of light rather than in a direction of dark. Yeah, I think we're presented those opportunities constantly. Yeah, I mean, the classic one is like road rage, right?
Yeah.
I mean, some little thing like somebody comes over in your lane in front of you too close, and it might just be somebody that didn't see you in their mirror, like, you know, and then all of a sudden it charges, you know, it makes your whole day have a hard time. Or,
you can either forgive them as they go, I forgive you, you know, or it's like, anger, and then what is actually what do you want to stick with you, you know, in a situation that you're not going to do anything about either way. Right? So
it's already happened.
It's already happened, yeah. Were you ever asked for forgiveness? I think sometimes a misconception for a lot of people is like, oh, I have to wait till somebody asks me for forgiveness before I can forgive them.
Yeah, okay, so I see where you're going with that question. Yeah, for me personally, I tell her a lot of times in my prayers that, hey, because I want to continue that feeling of non-judgmental, you know, no blame, no like, so for me to cultivate that kind of awareness on my heart, I think it's a practice, right? Like, so forgiveness being a practice of like, at nighttime, forgive our trespasses, forgive those who trespassed against us. You know, so it's like that prayer, you know, the Lord's Prayer of constantly forgiving those, even if they don't even know that number one, they've hurt me, or that number two, that they need forgiveness. Like, it's just a good practice to do, and I would like others to do it for me. Those are the things that I bring up in my mind when something happens to me, of a reminder of like, oh, they might not even, this might be something that people don't even realize. If that is the case, like, I'm not judgmental on, like, I don't want to be judgmental on that either. Like, if that's how she truly feels, or if that's how anybody feels of something, like, I'm not like casting that first stone scenario. You know, that was the one that came to my mind when I was asked, you know, are you mad? It's like, no. Like, I'm mad at this person for what they've done to you. It's like, well, actually, you know, something happened to me. Things happen to us every day. To be mad at life, I guess that's ultimately maybe how I would think of it, is like, if I'm mad, I would just be mad at like the opportunities of life.
Yeah.
And I think there's so many more opportunities to be joyous and thankful of life.
What we talked about earlier, you know, of being able to see opportunities that maybe you wouldn't have considered before.
I think the basis of the conversation at that point in time had a lot to do with the limitations of the quadriplegia. So because of an accident, because of breaking my neck in the place that it broke, it limits your five senses abilities enough that you have to lean into other opportunities for engagement with loved ones, with friends, with the environment. So the current opportunity, because of my physical abilities being limited, has presented this large, how would I encompass it, this large gift. And a gift that isn't given in like a, this is so joyous, but a gift in like, to not rely on the things that were easy for those relationships. So it's like, I'll use the example of you and I's friendship. The way that you and I probably would have engaged before this opportunity would have been like to do some farm work together, maybe to go for a bike ride. So to use my physical body in order to engage together as brothers. And now the opportunity that you and I have both been given because of this adverse, physical scenario is the ability to share with each other more on a level that has to do with the things that we can't taste, touch, hear, smell, and like we can because we can engage vocally, but it's more like, how's your heart today, Clint? Yeah, I guess that's because of the limitations. I'm given different ways to relate to people. And it's, just talking to you about it right now, it's like, it's not just a gift given to me, it's a gift given to anybody that I have a relationship with.
100%.
Which is like a fun thing to kind of contemplate. Like, here now, instead of going on a bike ride together, we get to have a heart-to-heart talk. And not that you didn't have those opportunities with me previous, but now it like gets to be a more focal point. And it is also, because it becomes more into focus, we get to cultivate that talent together, maybe even. On a relationship level. Like earlier, we were talking about family with that, and specifically with my kids. Now I can't throw a ball with them, or hold them, or jump on the trampoline, on any of those basic things that dads like to do with their kids, which is usually involves some sort of fun physical activity that engages with their kids. And not that other people don't have limitations, but now it's like Hattie will come up to me and she'll be like this morning she said to me even, it's okay if you cry about me. And her reason for saying that was because a lot of times she'll come and stand here on the wheel of the chair, and I'll like put my arm around her and I'll give her lots of kisses and kind of hold her, and it'll make me, and I'll whisper in her ear that I love her or whatever, or I love you so much, and she'll say, I knew you were going to say that. And it's like, because that's what I can do. That's the gift that I'm given, and to share with her, that it becomes sharing emotions and vulnerability rather than those other easier things, which would have been play. So one thing that just comes to my mind when we bring up kids and faith and connection, I'm not real great at just recalling Bible verses, but there's one in there of like they're closest to that source, right? Like children are like the closest thing to perfect when they enter into this world. as what we'll ever see. And so I think that they, in that vein of ethos, you know, the kids all the time, specifically I told you about Hattie telling me like, you know, I'm sad that the accident happened, but I'm happy for all the wonderful things that have happened in the last year. And they're referring to things like this, you know, the sharing and the community and the connections with other people that otherwise maybe there wouldn't have been as much opportunity for. So out of any, I wouldn't even call it a crisis, because it's not a crisis. You know, it's an injury and it's an accident, but it wasn't a crisis. But anything like that, a crisis or an accident, presents itself for humans to make connections. And I think that's ultimately what my family's seen, is like an extreme influx of connections from friends and family and community that hopefully, you know, we can continue to like keep those things going. You know, eventually time fades and, you know, things change, but hopefully, you know, we can continue to like use that opportunity to keep as many of those fires kindled as possible. But yeah.
It's so amazing that they would recognize that, and they would see that, and they would even value that. And maybe because you and Rachel value that as well, the connection with people. That's a gift that you guys are giving back as a family, of being able to see what you do have instead of what you don't have.
Sure.
To see the opportunity instead of the lack. It's an immense it's an immense gift to me, and I know to so many other people. So
yeah,
thank you for that.
You bet.
Yeah.
And to go in the conversation of restoration or walking or whatever, like, it's not that that's not a desire, because obviously it'd be wonderful, but at the cost of what? Because I don't want to ever miss the available, not that I would miss a lesson, but it, you know, the thought of walking and then like, okay, everything goes back to normal. You know, not that my normal was bad, I mean, or not that I wouldn't like be like so thankful. Like I was, you know, I was a runner before the accident, and not that I don't identify as a runner now, but it was like every day that I ran, which was almost every day, I gave thanks for running. You know, so it's kind of like I didn't go unthankful for those things. You know, so now to like, oh, if I could just walk again, then I'd be so thankful. Like, I've always been thankful for that. And not that I'm not thankful for this, but if it's like, if it just stopped, like, okay, then I don't know, you know, I'm still hopeful to utilize any opportunity to glean wisdom or to strengthen faith, or to, like, you know, and so I wouldn't want to just wish things away, if that's, does that make sense? You know, it's like,
yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
The only thing that the hardest thing for me about it is any inconvenience that I lay on others. You know, it's like when we are inconvenienced to those that we love, and not that it would ever be inconvenient for your wife or your husband to help you, but it's like, you know, when you need help with everything, that's the harder end of the inconvenience. It's like, I could go or not go walking. Like that's, like for me personally. But it's like, if walking could make Rachel's life easier, then I want it so badly.
Right.
You know, or give me a better relationship with my children or with my friends, then I want it so badly. But it like hasn't actually presented those obstacles yet. I mean, it is harder for Rachel in regards to like, she has more things that she has to help me with, but I don't think she views it as like, man, Jeff's such a burden, you know, like.
Maybe because she's viewing it as her own opportunity.
Yeah, right. Like, I mean, that's my hope. I
Yeah.
hope that's.
I think so.
She would use it, and for the kids too. You know, like I don't get to do things with them, but I also like their character growth because of my limitations is immense.
Absolutely.
So I don't want to take that away from them.
Yeah.
You know, because Dad starts walking again and using his hands, and then they, you know, don't cook their own breakfast or whatever, you know, whatever those opportunities have been.
When they get married, for better or for worse, till death do us part kind of scenario, when like not many get to live it out in such a way that is as true, you know, to what we're able to experience right now, you know, with the amount of commitment, not just on a physical level, but on an emotional and spiritual level together to, you know, it's one thing to just take care of your loved one when you're sick, but to take care of them intimately, even though I'm well, but I have an injury, you know, so every night to share that, you know, to go just the things of, you know, get you up, put you to bed, get you up for the day, help you get into the chair and go to the bathroom and take a shower, and all those things, like just, to fully live out that commitment of for better or for worse, and to model that for, you know, for the children too.
Yeah.
You know, like what an amazing model to share, like seeing your mom take care of your dad, you know, and her husband in that kind of way. The true love that a brother can have, you know, for his brother, and then also his brother's family. You know, the kids get the opportunity to call him Daddy Goat, and they don't. It's not, you know, it's not something that I take lightly. I mean, who else could you choose other than your own brother to do those dad-like things like jumping on the trampoline or splitting wood, or, you know.
I think a lot of people also think that with limitations, I think we're all limited in ways, right? Like, and some are just a little more apparent than others. There's so many perspectives, and I think sometimes just taking yourself out of the perspective of fear. I don't think everything has to be easy. I also don't think that this world is like is meant to also be just constantly thought of as struggle. Before the accident, you know, it's like, oh, I'm turning 40, you know, eventually I'll be old and I won't be able to do the things that I wanted, you know, I love to do. And then it's like, oh, well, now things are different and you can't do a lot of the things that you thought were slowly gonna go away, and now they're just instantly gone. You know, so I think that things always are changing, and we can choose to like ride that wave of change and present it into, you know, new opportunities of growth, or we can ride that wave into a state of fear and like vulnerability and scare, like to where we're looking behind us rather than looking in front of us. So I would just encourage anyone to don't, you know, learn from the past, but don't, you know,
don't let it paralyze you, maybe.
yeah, don't let it paralyze you.
No pun intended. I guess one last thing that comes to mind is something I heard you say several times, is that you verbally be thankful, or you verbally, you know, forgive. Why do you do that?
Will I say it out loud?
Yeah.
I think it makes it like announces it. It makes it real. Like, I think that there are multiple reasons why to present something out loud, you have it in your heart or on your heart maybe, right? But then to speak those words, it's like it brings it out of the vessel and like presents that opportunity to be received. Like, so that's kind of, when we say a prayer, saying it in your mind, I think is very powerful. But when you speak it out loud, it not is only on your heart, but then it's presented outwardly. And so, yeah, that without thinking about it too hard, maybe that's why, because it gives opportunity then to trickle away and be received by by other things other than what's internally in my heart, or on my heart.
It's good.
And then you get to hear it too. So it's like, there's so many, to present it out, and then kind of like singing. You can sing it in your mind, but then you say it out loud, and it presents a whole new, new experience.
Yeah.
Adds layers to it, maybe.
Yeah, for
Depth.
sure. One reason I thought of is that it's because we have a lot of thoughts go on, right? But which one do we choose to hold on to? And I think sometimes speaking that out is that's the choice that's the thought that we approve of, and it's almost like we're telling ourselves and we're telling the world, like God spoke the world into existence. It's like we're speaking that thought in, like that's what it is. This is how it is. I'm gonna be thankful. You're forgiven.
It also gives opportunity to like critically think about it.
Yeah.
When you say something out loud, it gives you the opportunity to be like, oh, and correct it if it needs corrected, or even for somebody else to correct it if it or tweaked. Maybe a correction isn't the best word, but it's like for you to verbally, or vocally express something. It gives then the opportunity for you to be self-critical after you hear it, like, oh, okay, or others the opportunity, and I think it just reaffirms it, like you said, on what was on your heart, and then it's vocally spoken. Let it be written. Like all those things, like yeah. And that was more intuitively, like, for me to say that and to speak it out loud. I mean, it is something that I do, but it wasn't like something that I was taught. It was just like, it seemed right to be like, okay, and, just to say your prayer quietly to yourself, but, and to let other people hear it, kind of almost holds you accountable too, like, but you said, you weren't going to be mad and angry. The kids always will remind you of that. If you say something out loud, they hold you to it.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
I love it.
Right?
I love it. Dad, you said that.
Right, yeah.
Oh my gosh, I did. Thank you for reminding me.
Sure, hold you accountable.
Yeah.
So maybe that's another good reason. There's lots of good reasons maybe.
Yeah.
To say things out loud, hold you accountable. Because you want to be, right? Right. And I think, that forgiveness piece, I think forgiving somebody or something, or or forgiving yourself one time, like I really believe it is a practice.
Yeah.
Like, so to do it once, especially for something that is long lasting. So like to forget like every hard moment that I have, for like to me to think of the person or the situation, like, and to speak forgiveness constantly is like reaffirming that's on your heart, right? Like every time, oh yeah, I had a hard day or had a hard moment of this new physical journey, and then to speak forgiveness every night with your prayers or whatever, for yourself and for others, and I think it keeps it written on your heart.
Yeah. Keeps it written on your heart. That's so good. That is so good. There's always that opportunity to pick up bitterness back again, right? When you have a hard time.
Yeah,
Right,
I think you have to, it's a practice to like stay on that state of mind. And not that you don't ever slip, you know, and like have a day where you're really angry at those, or really having a hard day forgiving yourself or what, like, but you know, if you can practice it. So.
Yeah.
Trying to get attention.
You got some new dogs over there,
Yeah.
something. New
Just-
animals.
Oh, is it too loud?
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you for this time, for being vulnerable, letting me ask what I feel is hard questions, but you always answer them like as though those are things that you've thought about, you think about all the time, you know. So thank you just for your heart, for who you are, for
Likewise.
being a friend.
Yeah, oh man. That's what it's about, to encourage each other, you know. Encourage you to be the best you, and you do the same for me, and that's what will make heaven on earth, right? Like, that's the point. If we can manage it.
We can manage it.
on
know,
earth,
I mean,
on earth as it is in heaven.
It is something to pursue for sure. Yeah. Can I give you a hug?
Yeah.
Dude, thank you so much.
Yeah, love you too. Thank you.